Well, I just got out of the shower. It's going to be my last shower before surgery. And then tomorrow morning is chemo bright and early. So I don't know if I'll be able to shower after that. So I'm actually getting ready to head to the hospital. I'm getting my port placed, my port catheter placed. So this is going to be the last time you see this nice, clear chest. Because on this side here, I'm going to have two cuts here, and a tube is going to be placed and attached into my vein, my jugular vein, and then the port's going to be here and it'll lift off the skin a little bit. It'll be under the skin but lift off. There's a rubber part right in the middle where the chemo technicians and nurses, doctors, whatever, will poke a needle into to go through the skin and into the rubber hole, and that is a straight source to the vein to either draw blood from or to administer chemo. So the red devil juice, I guess, as they call it. So yeah, so this is the last time I'm going to be without scars here. So all good. That's okay. That's all right. Let's just go ahead and keep it moving and let me march forward and onward towards healing and recovery. So let's go ahead and get the treatment started. So next time you see me, I will probably be wheeled out from sedation after my surgery. So I'll see you soon. Okay, so I just got home from surgery, and this is the port, what it looks like. It is a catheter that they inserted into the jugular vein. So what they do is they cut right here, and they cut right here, and they take the vein out, and they insert the catheter into the vein, and they push it back in, and they fit it. And so now my skin is raised a little bit, and you can feel the catheter port underneath here. And it's going to have like a rubber middle that the nurse will feel for, the tech at chemo will feel for, and then that's where the needle goes in. So it has a direct source to the bloodstream for either blood draws or chemo administration. So I'm stitched up here, and I'm stitched up here right now. They glue the stitches together and then they stitch over it, but the stitches disappear automatically, so I don't have to do anything with it. I have to keep this dress for about 72 hours. I can take a shower and everything over it. I can do regular activities, only I can't right now because I'm in some pain. But in a nutshell, this is kind of how it went. I went in and I checked in at 5:30 p.m. and they prepped me. And what that means is they take you back and you have to strip off all your clothes. You have to be completely nude, and you have to put on a hospital gown and a robe because it's open in the back. So, for modesty purposes, I guess you have to put a robe on over it. And the robes are kind of nice, actually. They're like spa robes. I don't know if this would be constitute as a spa visit, but it's a spa robe, and they give you slippers as well. And you have to put one of those caps over your medical caps over your head. And then you have to wear a mask. So I did all that and I was fine. But so then they brought me to an operating room, and they asked me where the port was supposed to be placed, and I thought it was supposed to be placed where the cancer is, which is right here. But so they wanted to administer the saline IV on the opposite arm. They couldn't find a vein on this arm here, so they stuck it in my hand. And that isn't fun. So, it's fine. It's when they stick it in your hand, it's the same type of needle prick as anywhere else, but the needle just kind of hangs out there on top of your hand, like kind of in between the bones. And while it's chilling there, it's irritating. So it kind of aggravates the vein a little bit. And so you're kind of like, it's kind of like a foreign invader in your hand. It's just like hanging out, and it needs to not do that. So that wasn't comfortable. But was it painful? No, just irritating. It wasn't painful, just irritating. So I'm glad that's out now. And so But what ended up happening is they put the port on the opposite end. So I didn't need to do this at all. This is completely unnecessary. Good times. So anyway, my good vein is actually in this arm here. So it is what it is at this point. So then I hung out in the hospital bed for a while, actually. The doctor was in other surgeries, and so I had to wait for the doctor to be done with his surgeries, and I ended up falling asleep like on 3 different occasions. And I was hoping that at one of the times that I fell asleep that I would wake up and everything would have already been done, but no, no such luck. So they woke me up when it was time for surgery, and I guess I had been there for a few hours because surgery didn't actually take place. I checked in for prep at 5:30 and surgery didn't take place until 10 p.m. So my poor husband was out there. He was such a trooper. Oh my gosh. He was out there in the waiting room just like reading all the magazines and the books and everything that we brought, and we brought a bunch of snacks, and I totally prepared because I'm Spanish and that's what we do. We bring food everywhere. And entertainment and all of that. So he had his phone, but those chairs are not comfortable. So he's such a good sport. So he was out there, and the nurse went out and talked to him for a while, and then we, that's it. So nurse went out there and talked to him a few times, and then he got a text message that said that I was going into surgery. So I went in, and I was really hoping that they would knock me out, like just sedate me. I don't want to know what's going on, but no, they didn't. They actually kept me awake the whole time. Now, the procedure itself only takes about 15 to 20 minutes, so it's not long at all. Probably the longest 15 to 20 minutes of my life, but it wasn't long. And what they do is they took my hospital gown off, and they covered me on this side, and I was completely nude on this side. So that was interesting. And then they taped down my breast to my stomach. And they taped it in like 3 different places. And the tape is kind of long and thick. So it reminded me a little bit of like Lilu from The Fifth Element. Remember that outfit that she wore? So it was a little bit like that. Not as cool as Mia Jovovich, of course, but still kind of like that. And so then he all of a sudden they doused me with iodine everywhere. So I had iodine everywhere, and it was like dripping down my back, and I was like, oh, that's not going to be pretty when I get up. And they had me scoot over into an it was an operating room, like from the set of ER. It was crazy. All these lights came down everywhere, and all these monitors, and it was a very sterile environment, and it was very strange. It was my very first major surgery ever, so I had never really been in an operating room. So that was a little interesting. So basically, they have this thing that with a hole in it that they place on your, it's like a big thick piece of paper that they place over your chest, and the hole is going to be where they're operating on. And then they put this thing over my body that covered me from here, so I couldn't see below me. And I think they did that for my own, they do that for the patient. So, our anxiety doesn't, and panic doesn't go outer limits. And then they put a tent, like a tent thing over my face. And it was like a fort. So I was like kind of hanging out in a tent. And I couldn't see a thing. I could hear everyone, and there was a group for prep. There was like a group of 6 techs that helped me out with prep. And then when I was in the operating room, there was like 6 assistants assisting the doctor. So, and what was great is that the doctor who did my port placement is actually my oncology doctor. So I knew them and I trusted them, and I was very happy about that. So, then all of a sudden he was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and administer anesthesia. And he got me right in the neck. And I was like, wah! So the needle goes in pretty deep. You just have to breathe through it. There's not much you can do. You have to tough it out. You just do. Bite on something. Hopefully not on your tongue, but, and then he got me again here, and he got me again here, and he got me again here. And I think I had about 8 needles of anesthesia. And it was the weirdest sensation ever because you can feel pressure. You can feel pulling, pushing and pressure, but no pain, like no bee stings, no pain, no nothing. And so then every time I felt his fingers pressing, and I was like, doctor, I can feel your fingers pressing. I don't know if that means anything. And then all of a sudden he said, no, that's okay. The worst of it's over. And I was just anticipating, like waiting for him to start cutting into me. And I didn't feel any of that, like none at all. And so I was like, wow, that stuff works really well. That now I know what Botox feels like. And while they're at it, can you like stick one up here and up here and up here? But no, no such luck there either. So, they, so then all of a sudden he said, no, I have your vein out. And I was like, actually, like out of my body? He was like, yeah. So I was talking to the doctor through this whole time, the whole thing. And he was like, I have your vein out. Where the catheter is already in. I'm pushing your vein back in. And now I'm placing, he goes, you're going to feel some pushing and pressure, which I did, but it didn't hurt. And he said, I'm going to place your port now in your body. And he was like, and I said, okay. So I felt like pushing and tugging and things like that, but no pain. It was just a very weird sensation because your brain wants to register that you're in pain, but you're not. So it's a little bizarre, but it's an interesting thing to experience. And then he said, okay. And then I felt like some pulling. And I was like, hey, doctor, are you stitching me up now? And he goes, I am. And so he glued me and then he stitched me up. And then there was like a bunch of, they washed it and they put more iodine around there. And then they washed it, wiped it up again. And then they bandaged me up. And he said, okay, you're all done. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness. And then all I could think about was getting this thing out because this thing was starting to like feel aggravated. So that was that. Then I scooted on over back to the prep bed from the operating table, and I looked over at the operating table, and there's iodine everywhere. I was really glad it wasn't blood, but it was iodine. So it was a little messy, but it was okay. So then the doctor came and greeted me back in the recovery area, and they let Kevin know that I was recovered, and that was that. So that was my port experience. So they gave me a couple of pain pills and they sent me home as soon as I was ready to go. They gave me hot tea and some crackers, which was good because I had a fast since noon. And at this point it's 11:30 around, no, well, yeah, I left the hospital at like 11:30. So maybe it did take longer than I thought. Anyway, it felt like 15 to 20 minutes, but from beginning to end, it didn't feel like that long. So anyway, that's it. That's my story. So I am not tough. I am not brave. I cry when I get a paper cut. I tell everyone this. So, but I toughed it out and I was very proud of myself. So pat on the back. How do I feel today? I'm really sore. It feels like lactic acid in a muscle after you've been to the gym. So it kind of hurts to turn my head a little bit. It just feels very sore. And there's no pain per se, but it's just really tight in this area, in this area. So I'm just going to take more pain medication and get to sleep. So tomorrow is chemo, and they will not use the port for chemo. They will use my vein, hopefully on the good arm. And that's fine because I have chemo every 2 weeks for now for 4 sessions. And then 2 weeks from now, this should be healed enough for them to use. So, but right now I'm going to go ahead and keep it protected. And thank you all for watching and for joining me. That is my port story. And here in Portugal, they take very good care of you. The healthcare is amazing. The doctors, the nurses, and the techs are amazing. The hospitals are incredible. Everything is brand new and state of the art. And I was very impressed. So far, so good. I'm very impressed with the healthcare here in Porto, Portugal. It's Europe, and man, they do things slightly differently here, but it's awesome. I have no complaints. So if you ever find yourself in a situation like this, that's why I'm doing these videos, so that you know what it's like for an expat who decides to move to another country and then ends up with a diagnosis like cancer. So this is for anyone who is curious about what it might be like, but hopefully it never happens to any of you. I don't wish this on anyone. This is my another one of my public service announcements to please go get checked. Go make sure that you have all of your appointments done. and taken care of, and that you are kind to yourself, and make sure you have everything preventative done. I caught this a little late, so I'm stage 3. I should have caught it at stage 1, but I was a year late on my mammogram. So that's what happens. Do better than me, and go get all your wellness checks. Thanks for joining me today. Bye.